This is Captain Everyman. I'm here today to talk to you about a major Easter egg and clue that was in the Infinity War's Endgame trailer that came out very recently. And I'm using clarity, insight, and perspective to reveal this to you. And what it was, if you look closely at the trailer and you look at the note that Tony Stark is making to send to Pepper Potts in case he passes away, look very closely at what's going on. And as you saw in the thumbnail, the writers are trying to give us a major clue as to what Iron Man is about and how an Endgame will play out ultimately. And what that is that if you look closely at the trailer and you look at Iron Man's segment in there, they're mirroring something that happened in the Shakespearean tragedy called Hamlet. Now, I'm going to give spoilers here for Hamlet, for Infinity Wars, and for the Iron Man movie. So if you don't want to hear these, now's the time to go. But there's a speech that Hamlet has, and he reflects on life and immortality and all that, just like Tony does. And in a nutshell, when Tony talks about part of the journey as the end, this is exactly what Hamlet is talking about in the tragic play that Shakespeare wrote. He talks about how he's looking at the skull of Yorick, who was the court jester, and he remembers him from when he was a child and how his life was much different then. And he starts to really think about death because he's looking at this dead man's skull. Well, Iron Man's looking at this remnant of what he has become as well. He's looking at the Iron Man mask and what he's able to cobble together from whatever technology's left over from that major battle. And he's recording this message and sending it off. Well, this is very similar to what Yorick did with Hamlet. This is how the writers are giving us a clue as to how this whole thing is going to play out. If you look at Iron Man, there have been parallels here the whole time. But once they make this sort of explicit kind of allusion to Hamlet with this scene in the trailer, it lets you know that this is a major clue as to what's going to happen in this next movie. Well, you think about how Ham was motivated to avenge the murder of his father, and how Tony Stark was too. That was another parallel that's been in these movies. Another thing was both Hamlet and Tony Stark had conniving father figures that tried to murder them that they had to overcome, and that was something that Hamlet had to do too. So what is this all leading us to? It's leading us to how, although they're not exactly the same, and it's not like Iron Man's a retelling of Hamlet somehow, but it's showing you sort of parallels and foreshadowing that Hamlet had to do with things. And of course, great storytellers always sort of borrow from each other because these themes still affect audiences in much the same way as they did back then. So how does the Easter egg lead us to a major sort of plot point in Endgame Infinity Wars? And how does it reveal sort of how Thanos is defeated? Well, here's how we look at that. How did Hamlet defeat the man who was trying to murder him? And we look at how the antagonist in Hamlet tried to kill the hero and what the outcome was. Because using clarity, insight, and perspective, I believe they've revealed to us in this trailer actually the end and how Thanos is overcome. When you think about it, Thanos was much like Claudius, who was the man who tried to kill Hamlet. Thanos sent Loki, whereas Claudius sent Laertes to try to finish off Hamlet. And they did it in a sword fight. Now there's two scenes in this movie that kind of stand out. There's the way the writers are underlying these two different scenes in the movie. One is where Doctor Strange gives up the time stone and Thanos makes a comment, "You had this weapon the whole time and it was the most powerful weapon you had, you never used it once." Now, I mean, this is like cluing the audience into this is really not what's going on. It's letting us know there's more to this than we might think. Now, what I think people slept on was another scene in the movie that's very much like that. Tony Stark gets into a fight where he's fighting Thanos. He's using all the tech he has with the Iron Man suit. He has this configuration he goes into where he buries one foot in the ground. He comes and hits him with this big like club across the face. And the fight stops there for a second. It's almost like the writers are saying, audience, listen closely to this. And what does he say? He says, all that for a drop of blood. And this is where I think that it will unfold. In the play Hamlet, used poison to actually kill Claudius. Now you think about it, all the scenes of fighting in this entire movie with Thanos, nobody was able to really do any damage except for Stark in that one scene. Now if the timeline gets reset, like many of us think that it will, that would be a perfect time to put the poison there, just like there was in Hamlet, and poison Thanos, because this is the one time somebody's actually wounded him. Look very closely in this scene. You'll see that the marks on his face even look like swords have like cut him across the face. And I think that's a clue as well. Also, why is a drop of blood important? Because now that Tony has a sample of this blood, it would allow him to analyze it and make some kind of toxin that could poison him. Or maybe he could even set it up to inject the nanotech into Thanos' body and kill him that way. But either way, this is a major Easter egg and clue as to how Thanos is going to be defeated. And I really believe that we'll see a repeat of what happened in Hamlet, just like these other parallels are here in the stories in these other movies. That we'll end up seeing Thanos poisoned by Tony in this one scene, this major scene, because all this work from one drop of blood is going to be the one vulnerable spot that's finally going to get Thanos killed and finally vanquished and get us the kind of ending that our heroes are worthy of.